You're too embarrassing to invite. Sarah's text message glowed on my phone screen. The Prescotts are old money. We can't have you showing up in your thrift store clothes and making a scene. I stared at the message, my hand involuntarily touching the perfectly tailored blazer I was wearing, the same one I'd bought to wear to her engagement party, the one that cost more than her monthly rent. My sister had no idea that while she'd been playing socialite with her fiancé's family, I'd been quietly building my own real estate empire, and she certainly had no idea that the $15,000 deposit I'd paid for her dream venue was pocket change compared to what I was about to do next. I'm Catherine Chen, 35, and until this moment, I'd maintained the image my family expected, the plain, responsible older sister who had settled for a boring corporate job while Sarah pursued her dreams of marrying into high society. What they didn't know was that my boring job as a commercial real estate analyst had taught me to recognize opportunity when I saw it. Don't worry about the deposit, I texted back, consider it my wedding gift. Sarah's response was immediate, whatever, just don't show up. James's mother is very particular about the guest list. James Prescott III, Sarah's fiancé, came from one of Boston's oldest families, old money, old connections, and apparently, old prejudices about what made someone worthy of attending their precious social events. I closed my messaging app and opened my email, finding the one I'd received earlier that morning. Ms. Chen, the owners of Rosewood Manor have accepted your offer. We can close by the end of the week. Best regards. Michael Stewart, Stewart Associates Real Estate. I smiled, remembering my first visit to Rosewood Manor 3 weeks ago, right after Sarah announced it would be her wedding venue. While she'd been dazzled by the chandeliers and marble floors, I'd noticed the property's potential and its struggling owner's eagerness to sell. A week later, I'd made an offer through one of my holding companies. The aging couple who owned it had jumped at the chance for a quick sale, especially when I offered cash and a leaseback option for their cottage on the grounds. My phone buzzed again, another text from Sarah. By the way, Mom agrees it's better if you don't come. She doesn't want you embarrassing us in front of the Prescotts either. Of course she did. Our mother had always favored Sarah, the pretty one, the one who could advance the family's social standing through an advantageous marriage. Meanwhile, I was the one who paid their bills, covered Sarah's rent when she overspent on designer clothes, and quietly invested every spare dollar into building something of my own. I picked up my office phone and dialed Michael Stewart's number. Catherine, he answered warmly, I was just about to call you. The paperwork is ready. Perfect, I replied. And the other matter we discussed? The current event contracts will transfer with the property, including the Prescottian wedding. As the new owner, you'll have full discretion over how to handle them. Excellent, I'll be there first thing tomorrow to sign. After hanging up, I opened my laptop and began reviewing the other emails that had accumulated during my workday. As a senior analyst at Boston Capital Partners, I had a reputation for thoroughness that had served me well in building my own investment portfolio. A new message caught my eye, from James Prescott II, Sarah's future father-in-law, to the partners at my firm. The subject line read, Confidential, Prescott Holdings Liquidation. I shouldn't have opened it, but after Sarah's texts, after years of being treated as less than, I wanted to know exactly what kind of family she was so desperate to impress. The contents were enlightening. The Prescott family's old money was nearly gone, their real estate holdings mortgaged to the hilt, their businesses struggling. James II was quietly exploring options to sell off assets before their financial situation became public knowledge. Sarah had no idea she was marrying into a crumbling dynasty. Their show of wealth, the country club memberships, the summer house, even James III's job at his father's company, was all built on rapidly shifting sand. I closed the email and checked the time. The movers would be arriving at Rosewood Manor tomorrow afternoon to begin the renovations I'd planned. Sarah's wedding was in 3 weeks. The timing would be perfect. My phone buzzed one more time. Don't worry about coming to the rehearsal dinner either. James's sister said she'd die of embarrassment if anyone found out my sister works as some kind of accountant. I took a deep breath, remembering all the times I'd swallowed my pride for family harmony, the times I'd smiled and nodded when Sarah bragged about her latest luxury purchase, purchased with money I'd given her, the times I'd listened to our mother praise Sarah's social climbing while dismissing my career achievements. Noted, I replied simply. Then I opened my calendar and began planning the next 3 weeks very carefully. The following morning, I arrived at Stewart Associates at 8 a.m. sharp, dressed in one of my embarrassing designer suits. Michael had the paperwork ready, and within an hour, I was officially the owner of Rosewood Manor. Congratulations, Michael said as we shook hands. Any immediate plans for the property? Just some renovations, I replied. Nothing that will interfere with the upcoming events. By noon, contractors were swarming over Rosewood Manor, beginning the upgrades I'd planned. New lighting, updated bathrooms, a state-of-the-art kitchen for the catering staff, the kinds of improvements that would increase the property's value while maintaining its historic charm. Mrs. Rosewood, the previous owner, met me for tea in her cottage that afternoon. "It's wonderful to see someone taking an interest in the place," she said, watching the workers through her window. "We always hoped it would go to someone who understood its potential." "I have every intention of honoring its history," I assured her, "including keeping you and Mr. Rosewood in your cottage as long as you wish." She smiled knowingly. "Dear, I hope you don't mind me asking, but aren't you the sister of the bride who's getting married here in 3 weeks?" "I am," I confirmed, "though they don't know about my purchase yet." "Ah," she nodded, her eyes twinkling. "I met your sister when she came to view the property. She seemed very concerned with appearances." "She is," I agreed, "which is why the timing of this reveal needs to be perfect." The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of renovation work and wedding preparations. Sarah, caught up in her own drama, didn't even notice the improvements being made to her venue. She was too busy texting me complaints about various family members who weren't up to Prescott standards. "Cousin Amy's bringing her girlfriend, can you believe it? James's mother nearly had a heart attack. Dad's suit looks so off the rack. Maybe you could loan him money for a better one, since you're not coming anyway." Each message reinforced my resolve. The Prescotts' financial situation was worse than initially reported. I'd discovered more details through my work channels. They were barely keeping up appearances, leveraging one property to pay for another, hoping to maintain their facade of wealth just a little longer. 3 days before the wedding, during the final renovation inspection, I received an unexpected visit. James Prescott too himself arrived at Rosewood Manor, clearly not recognizing me as his future daughter-in-law's sister. "I'm here to discuss the wedding," he announced to the construction foreman, who directed him to me. "Mr. Prescott," I greeted him professionally. "What can I do for you?" "I understand there's been a change in ownership," he said, looking around at the improvements with poorly concealed interest. "I want to ensure there won't be any issues with my son's wedding." "Everything is proceeding as planned," I assured him, "though I did notice your deposit check hasn't cleared yet." He stiffened slightly. "There was a temporary banking error. It will be resolved shortly." "Of course," I smiled. "Fortunately, the bride's sister already covered the deposit. The final payment isn't due until after the wedding." He relaxed visibly, though I caught a flash of something, shame, concern, cross his face. He hadn't known about my contribution to his son's wedding. "Well then," he said, straightening his tie, "I suppose everything is in order, and you are the new owner." I replied simply, "I look forward to seeing you at the wedding." He left looking slightly unsettled, and I wondered if he was starting to connect the dots. It didn't matter. In 3 days, everything would become clear. The morning of the wedding arrived sunny and clear. I'd arranged for the staff to play their parts perfectly. No one was to reveal my ownership until exactly the right moment. Sarah arrived early with her bridesmaids, swept into the bridal suite in a flurry of silk and tulle. From my office window, I watched the Prescott family arrive, their designer clothes and luxury cars a stark contrast to what I knew about their bank accounts. At precisely 2 p.m., an hour before the ceremony, my assistant knocked on my door. "Ms. Chen, there's an issue with the wedding payment that requires the owner's attention." Perfect timing. I made my way to the main hall, where I found Sarah in her wedding dress, arguing with the venue coordinator. "What do you mean there's a problem?" she was saying, her voice rising. "Everything's been paid for." "The deposit was paid," the coordinator confirmed, "but we need to discuss some details with the new owner." "Fine," Sarah snapped. "Where is this owner? I'll deal with them myself." "Right here," I said quietly, stepping forward. Sarah turned, her expression shifting from anger to confusion to horror as recognition dawned. "Catherine?" she whispered. What are you doing here? I told you not to come." "Actually," I replied, "I own Rosewood Manor now, have for the past 3 weeks. Surprise." The color drained from her face. Behind her, I could see James III and his father exchanging worried glances. You bought my wedding venue?" Sarah's voice was rising again. "How dare you? You're trying to ruin my special day." "Not at all," I assured her calmly. "I'm just making sure everything is perfect. The renovations, the new lighting, the upgraded facilities, all my contribution to your perfect day." But you can't afford." She looked around at the obvious improvements. finally noticing the changes she'd been too self-absorbed to see before. I can afford quite a lot, Sarah. That boring accountant job you're so embarrassed by? It paid for more than just your rent and shopping sprees all these years. James II stepped forward, recognition finally showing on his face. Ms. Chen, from this morning, you're Catherine Chen, senior analyst at Boston Capital Partners. I confirmed. We should discuss those confidential emails about Prescott Holdings sometime. He went pale, and I saw James III grab his arm in concern. The wedding can proceed exactly as planned, I continued. I'm not here to ruin anything. I just wanted you all to know exactly who owns this venue, and who's actually paying for this wedding. Sarah was crying now, her perfect makeup starting to run. Why are you doing this to me? Because, I said softly, someone needed to show you that appearances can be deceiving. You're so worried about impressing the Prescotts with their old money, you never bothered to look beyond appearances. Speaking of which, I turned to James II. Your final payment for the venue rental is due. Shall we discuss that now, or would you prefer to wait until after I meet with my firm's partners about Prescott Holdings? The next hour was a blur of negotiations and revelations. James II, facing exposure of his financial troubles, agreed to a payment plan for the venue. Sarah, discovering that her future in-laws weren't as wealthy as they appeared, had to re-evaluate her priorities rather quickly. The wedding proceeded, though with considerably less pompous ceremony than originally planned. I watched from my office as Sarah and James III exchanged vows, both of them perhaps a bit more clear-eyed about their future together. Later that evening, as the last guests were leaving, Sarah found me in my office. Why didn't you ever tell me, she asked quietly, about your success? Would you have believed me? I countered, or would you have just asked for more money? She had the grace to look ashamed. I'm sorry, Catherine, for what I said, for how I treated you. I know, I said, and despite what you might think, this wasn't about revenge. It was about teaching you, and the Prescotts, that true worth isn't about appearances. James's family, she began. Will be fine, I assured her. I'm working with his father on restructuring their holdings. Sometimes people need to lose the facade to find their real strength. Sarah nodded slowly. I've been horrible to you, haven't I? All these years. Yes, I agreed, but you're still my sister, and now that you know who I really am, maybe we can start over. She looked around my office, taking in the awards and certificates I'd never bothered to show off, the evidence of success I'd kept hidden while she'd flaunted her borrowed glamour. I'd like that, she said finally, though it might take some getting used to, my embarrassing accountant sister being a secret real estate mogul. I smiled. Well, now you know why I always said appearances can be deceiving. After Sarah left, I stood at my office window, watching the last of the wedding decorations being cleared away. Rosewood Manor would host many more events, but none quite as satisfying as this one. My phone buzzed, a message from our mother. I hear you bought Sarah's wedding venue. Why didn't you tell us you were doing so well? I thought about responding, but decided some lessons take time to sink in. Instead, I sent a quick email to my assistant about tomorrow's schedule. There were more properties to acquire, more investments to manage. After all, success is the best revenge, especially when it comes as a complete surprise to those who underestimated you. The following weeks brought changes I hadn't expected. Sarah and James III, humbled by the revelations at their wedding, actually seemed to grow stronger as a couple. They moved into a modest apartment, and James took a job with a different firm, determined to make his own way rather than rely on his family's crumbling reputation. James II, working with my firm to restructure Prescott Holdings, proved to be a capable businessman once he stopped trying to maintain appearances. Within 6 months, their companies were showing real growth rather than just the illusion of success. And my mother, well, she had to adjust to a new reality where her plain daughter was actually the family's greatest success story. It wasn't always easy for her, but she was learning. As for me, I kept doing what I'd always done, working hard, making smart investments, and remembering that true worth isn't about what others can see, but what you know you can achieve. Rosewood Manor thrived under my ownership, becoming one of Boston's most sought-after event venues, and if some of the society people who'd once looked down on me now had to write checks to that embarrassing accountant, well, that was just an added bonus. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about showing others who you really were all along.